Welcome everyone, my name is Jeff Smith and I'm going to talk to you today about some really nice developer productivity tips and tricks when using your Oracle database powered by SQL Developer Web. I'm the product manager and I want to show you all of the things that I really enjoy using in the tool day in and day out that you might not have had a chance to discover yourself by doing, reading the docs. We all like to read the docs when we have time, right? But it's nice if someone can kind of show us the shortcuts. And that's what I'm here to do. So what's SQL Developer Web? Well, it's your favorite database development and administration and query tool from the desktop ported into your browser. So nothing to install, no clients to manage, no TNS names files to take care of. All you need is the link provided by your system administrator. Click on that, provide your database credentials, and you're inside the database running your select start from queries, building your Excel spreadsheets, hopefully doing more interesting things than that. And you can do this for any Oracle database that has access to our web technology, which I'm going to show in a second. So what's a tip and what's a trick? Well, tips are like productivity boosters that can really help you get more out of the tool and maybe even have some fun while we're doing it. And tricks, that's the same thing, but they're things that aren't really documented. And today I'm showing you 100% tips. All of this stuff is documented. So where can I find SQL Developer Web? Well, the easiest way to get started with an Oracle database today is with an always free Oracle Autonomous database. And once you have your account created and once you have your database created, there's a link for SQL Developer Web built right into your console. Once you click that, it won't even prompt you for credentials if you're the owner of the account. It'll put you into the database as the administrator account, and you can just start typing your queries or maybe creating a development user and using that user to do your development work. Your other option is to use our web technology, Oracle REST Data Services, sometimes known as ORDS, completely free or included with your database license. You can pull that down, run it in a Docker, put it in Tomcat, put it anywhere where the rest of your web technology is running. I've got it running on my local machine. It's just a Windows program. And so I can have access to my local database in my own browser on my laptop. And I'm not supporting any other user, but you could set it up to deploy to as many instances of the database as you need to service as many users of the Oracle database as you need. Again, if you're in Oracle Cloud and you have an autonomous database, we manage and maintain the entire infrastructure for you, including ORDS, including SQL Developer Web. So you get to enjoy regular updates. Generally, the cadence is every 3 months, sometimes a little faster than that, actually. And we're getting ready to deploy another major update in the next couple of weeks. So once you're inside the tool, these are the things I want you to know about so you can get the most out of it. You got your preferences. I'm working in code all day. I want to have the code using a font that I like. I want it to have the text large enough so I can read it and I have eye strain. I want to turn the visual guide rails on and off. And I can even change the color schemes. So this is the default black on white text, but there's also this high contrast dark. So this applies just to the code editor spaces inside the tool. So it's not true dark mode for SQL Developer Web, although that is going to hopefully come later this year. Next, we've got something called the code palette. So you may have seen this before in tools like Visual Studio Code, and it's the exact same technology. So as I'm in the editor, I can invoke that with the keyboard, Control-Shift-P for Windows or Command-Shift-P for Macs. And that'll give you a pop-up menu, and you can kind of search your way in the types of text macro or commands that you want to run. Or if you've memorized these operations before, they all have associated keyboard shortcuts you can just invoke directly. So I always like to show people this because if you haven't watched someone use the tool, you might not be aware that that feature is available. So again, Control-Shift-P or Command-Shift-P. This is discussed in the documentation though. Brand new feature, we can now load files directly off of your browser. So if you want a Chromium-based web browser engine, we can get access to files on your machine and just open them directly into our editors. So I can open these files, I can run the contents of them against my database if I want to quickly create a table and populate it with my favorite data. I could go in here and make changes to the data or to the file represented by the data. And once I save that, it's going to persist those changes back to the file back on my local machine. So you might want to point to files in your local Git directory. And we want to have better support for Git in general going forward. So again, for the developer experience, we want you to be able to have the full-blown IDE day-to-day experience in the browser, just like you do in the desktop. So we're bringing lots of these features quickly into this technology. So we have the SQL worksheet where you can do ad hoc queries and, of course, export the results to spreadsheets. But we've also got now as a dedicated editor for your stored procedures. So your PLSQL packages, your triggers, your types, your standalone procedures and functions. So you get a full screen display for your code. We don't have things that don't make any sense for PLSQL. Like there's not a results page for queries. There's no explain plan page. There's no execute query button. We have open file. We have compile. There's a format button. The parser knows it's PLSQL, so it's going to immediately apply its PLSQL rules against it. And when you do compile your changes, if there are errors or warnings, you'll see them at the bottom, and those are navigable. So I can click on those errors, and it literally takes me to the line and the cursor position where the parser of the database detected the issue. So I guess that's kind of a tip or a trick. You can click on those errors and go directly to where the problem is. So in this case, it's saying, hey, X needs to be declared, and we found that on line 14. So I click on that, and it automatically highlights line 14 for me. Navigating the contents of your database. So two ways to do this. There's the classic way of finding stuff on the left. There's a drop down for schema, a drop down for type of object. The more interesting way, brand new feature about to go out in the next day or so, you can literally type the name of the object you're looking for, either the complete text or a partial search, hit enter, and we'll bring back a list of results broken down by the type of object. So I found some tables, some indexes. I explode out that list. I click on the item and immediately opens the object for me. You also notice that these results have keyboard shortcuts. If I do Control-1, it just auto opens the first result in the list. I really think this search feature is going to change the way people navigate the contents of their database. It's going to be much faster than doing the hunt and peck method of using the browser dropdowns. So importing data from Excel and delimited text files has been around for a long time, all the way back to almost the very first version of SQL Developer Desktop, and it's also now available in SQLcl. But something exclusive for SQL Developer Web, we now also support XML files, JSON files, and even Avro files. I'm going to do a quick demo of that now. So I've got my SQL worksheet here. I'm going to navigate to a different schema. I'm going to take my employees table and I'm going to load some data to it. So I'm going to say right-click, data loading, upload data. I'm going to choose a file on my machine called imps.json. And if we look at imps.json, we can see it as a JSON file, so it does an array of documents. And SQL Developer Web is going to basically decompose that JSON document as rows in a relational table. So this is going to preview like what it would look like. And then we have the same general options we would for mapping attributes to columns. And of course, if we're working with dates, we need to be able to tell the database, hey, here's how we translate this string into a date. Our wizard does try to help you. So in this case, it was successful in coming up with the correct NLS date format. You can override these options if you want. And if we get the mapping of the attributes to the columns wrong, you can come in and change those as well. If you want to create a brand new table from scratch, you can also click this hamburger button on the tables list. Instead of right-clicking on a table, just click right here and you can say data loading, upload data into new table, and you follow that same process, but instead of mapping columns to the JSON attributes, we're going to take those JSON attributes to build the columns, so you get to decide what the columns are called. And then we'll load the data for you. Live browsing and editing tables and views. So I'm just going to go straight to the demo on this one. Let's go back to our admin schema. And I have a table called blobs, or what some people call blobs. I'm going to say open. I'm going to come to the data page. So I could create new rows. I could change and update rows here. But what I want to do is inspect the contents of one of these blobs. So I'm going to click the pencil button. And I'm going to say, hey, I'm telling you, I know this is text. Show it to me as text. Now, if this were media like PDF or an MP4 or an animated GIF, if I click on the media page, we'll be able to detect the MIME type from the database and give you the right renderer or viewer here. So you can use this same dialog in creating new rows or updating existing rows. Here on this actions button, load, I can point to a different file. This will pull a file off my machine and load it up into the column, into the database. We could, of course, do this for any table in the database, but I just wanted to let you know we support almost all of the data types, including some of the fun ones like blobs. So here's an example of a blob that I loaded that was an animated GIF. Pictures are worth 1,000 words. So we put a lot of information in our database. Makes the databases extremely powerful, but sometimes they can also be a bit overwhelming. So here I've got an example of our relational diagrams and an example of our JSON document diagrams. So let's look at the relational diagrams first. Back in SQL Developer Web, on our hamburger button, there's an item called Data Modeler. And this will open up a blank canvas. And I can come over here to the navigator, come to a schema, pick a table, right-click. This is kind of another tip and trick. I can say, add object with dependencies to the diagram. So if this object were related to other objects, we'll bring them in automatically versus you bringing them in one by one. Once they're in, you can arrange these any which way you want. There's actually quite a bit of flexibility in how you draw these lines. You can change the anchor points. You can add elbows if you want. Now, if you happen to know this is a star schema layout, you can also use this button here and say, hey, just build it for me as a star design. You can export these out as images. You can get full data dictionary reports out of here. So I can see if it had any foreign keys. Line order for sure has 4 foreign keys on there. And you can even generate DDL scripts from here as well. So instead of looking at tables and the foreign key constraints, let's look at the contents of some of my JSON documents. So I'm using the JSON feature in the database. So I'm basically saying, hey, I want to store entire JSON documents in my database. And I've got a query interface here to working with those. And this JSON feature has its own collection of development APIs, even support for Mongo style APIs if I want. But if I want to know, like, really just what's this JSON document look like what's the sort of breakdown of the metadata in here, I can click this diagram button and we'll draw it as a diagram. So there's a lot going on here. So like this JSON document has like a geo object, an entities object, a coordinates object, and an extended entities object. So down here under extended entities, I have something under it called media. Then under media, I have something called sizes, video info, and additional media info. And it just kind of goes to show you just how flexible, powerful, and attractive this way of organizing and working with data can be for a developer. Here at the Oracle database, we want to provide you everything you need, regardless of the type of workload you're putting on the database or even the type of data you're storing in the database, even if that's JSON documents. So this JSON document feature is quite powerful, and the editor interface we've built for it's also quite powerful. I can import these, I can update the documents, I can query them, all kinds of good stuff. Building REST APIs, so in the cloud world, in the modern world, a lot of things are built on REST APIs. HTTPS is by far the most popular protocol out there for developers, and the world revolves around JSON documents. So I can take advantage of the power of the Oracle database, of its SQL and PLSQL interfaces, and I can map HTTPS endpoints onto those things and have them all powered by SQL and PLSQL. I don't have to be a JavaScript developer. I don't have to be a Java developer to build REST APIs. In fact, I don't even have to write SQL or PLSQL. We have a low-code option for making your objects in the database available. And you simply start by right-clicking on the program or the data object that you want to make an API available for. So I simply say REST enable. I confirm what the URI pattern will be for that object. I definitely check the required authentication so that no one can access those APIs that don't have the proper credentials. And then we give you all of the tools you need to start taking immediate advantage of these APIs. So we even generate for you the curl script, so you can go and play with these at the command line if you want, or start using these to automate things in your build processes. And we also give you built-in Open API, or what some people still call Swagger documentation, which is also a client. So I get a description of the endpoints, of what the payloads look like, and I can actually try these live in the browser. Very, very, very handy. Now, if you do know SQL, if you do know PLSQL, you can do a lot more with your REST APIs. So I provide the code, I provide the HTTP address and the pattern or the template. I say which HTTP verb will be attached to this API. In this case, it's a GET endpoint. I get to define what headers are going to be on the requests, and I get to define what the responses are going to look like. So I have a lot of control here, but I didn't have to write any JavaScript. I didn't have to write any Java. I'm still just doing the PLSQL or the SQL work. So in this case, I uploaded my iTunes library to my always free autonomous database, and I built some REST APIs that, calling some stored procedures, pulls my the contents of my iTunes libraries as PLSQL ref cursors. And ORDS is nice enough to transform those ref cursors into JSON documents. And then I could throw this onto a modern web application that knows how to deal with JSON to draw really nice user interfaces. Speaking of really nice user interfaces, SQL Developer Web is built and powered by ORDS, and we use Oracle, Jet, and other popular web libraries to build these interfaces. So if you open up Chrome Developer Tools, you can see we have a REST for running SQL. I want to end on one last quick tip. I can right-click on a table, generate DDL on the fly. Now, if I don't like how this DDL looks, we have a DDL command. Then I can tell SQL Developer Web exactly how I want the DDL to look, and then it generates it down here. That's my last tip and trick. So I have a couple of resources I think you definitely shouldn't miss. We have our live labs, which can be found at developer.oracle.com/livelabs. So completely guided tutorials of how to use these features powered by the Oracle Cloud. You don't have to set up your own database or anything. We take care of that for you. If you want to learn more about the always free platform, just go to oracle.com/cloud/free. Thanks everyone for your time today, and enjoy the rest of the event.